Welcome to the video demonstration of the payment requisition eForm. Here you can see the different chapters covered in the video. You can navigate to a specific segment of the video by noting the start times here or by clicking the interactive navigation down here. eForms stands for electronic forms, and these are administrative forms that are submitted through the WOW Business Gateway for processing. Currently you use paper forms for processing transactions like payment requisitions and travel and expense reimbursements. These eForms will either minimize or completely eliminate the use of paper forms, allowing us to make Weill Cornell a little greener and, more importantly, your lives a little easier. These new eForms also come with a slew of other benefits. eForms automatically format, calculate, and validate any information you enter. Approvals and rejections are also streamlined and done through the Universal Work List in WBG, very similar to how shopping carts are approved. Notifications are sent when an eForm is completed or rejected. The eForms monitor allows you to check the progress of your eForm and see any details you entered, as well as who's currently processing your eForm. In this demonstration, we'll discuss how to enter a payment requisition for yourself or someone else. These two processes follow the same general steps, save for a few nuances, which I'll point out. Let's cover a few definitions before diving into the transaction. A payment requisition is a request form that, when approved by the department, gives permission for a payment to be made to a specific payee. Typically, a payment requisition should be used to pay non-PO expenses. Examples of non-PO expenses are local employee travel, subscriptions, small utility bills, non-employee travel, honorarium, and research subjects. Remember, expenses incurred during overnight business travel should be submitted with the Travel and Expense eForm, which we'll cover in the Travel and Expense eForm video, which can be found in the eForm section of Help Files. To begin, you'll select eForms from the tab navigation bar on the WOW Business Gateway. Next, we'll click the Create New eForm button and select Payment Requisition. The process of submitting an eForm follows a wizard here as a guide. It's broken down by section, which you can see here in the clickable navigation bar. Under the Requester section, you should see your information. You can enter your phone number and extension. Next, we'll click the Requisition For dropdown. In this example, we'll enter a requisition for another employee. Upon making that selection, you'll see the additional fields where you can enter the CWEAD of the other employee, as well as their contact information. After we're finished, we'll click Next. On this page, you'll enter your itemized expenses on each line. You'll start by entering the date, followed by the invoice number. The invoice number is an optional field if you're entering it for yourself or another employee. You'll enter the GL account here. GL accounts allow you to categorize your expenses, and they are a required field. If you're not sure of the number, you can search for it by clicking the white box to the right of the entry field. You can run an open search or narrow down your choices by using the wildcard feature and surrounding part of your entry with asterisks. It's important to note that entries are case sensitive. This entry is for medical supplies, so we're going to search for supplies using the wildcard asterisk to pull in more data. You'll make your selection from the list below by clicking the gray box here. Next, you'll enter a description of payment. Because this was a medical supply order, we'll just specify that it's for the lab. Under account type, you'll select either a fund or WBS element and enter the account number next to it. And finally, you'll enter the amount. You can hit the Enter or Return key at any time to run a check on the data you've entered. You can also click the check button at the top of the page here. You can also see any notification listed up here. In this example, the notification states that the fund does not belong to the traveler's department, which in this scenario is fine. Yellow notifications will still allow you to proceed. Red notifications will not let you proceed until you make the suggested fix. Green notifications indicate your transaction was successful. We'll click the Next button to continue. On the Additional Details screen, you can choose your payment method. The default payment method will always be check, but you can select wire transfer if you have the beneficiary's banking and account information. In this scenario, we'll stick with check as our payment method. You can choose to have the check mailed to the beneficiary's home address or pick up the check at one of two Weill Cornell locations. We'll choose 575 Lexington. At the bottom of this page, you can include any additional comments about your submission. We'll click Next to advance to the Attachment section. Here you'll upload your supporting documentation, including any receipts you have. You can access the printable form for employee verification by clicking the Preview button in the top of the navigation bar. A PDF version of your entry will populate. You'll want to print this and have the employees sign the form. After that's completed, you'll want to scan that document and save it to your computer so you can upload it in the attachment section of this wizard. To upload an attachment, click the Required Attachment button. Next, you'll choose your file and give it a name. When you're done, click OK. You'll do this for employee verification as well. Once we're finished uploading our documents, we'll click the Next button and review our request. After reviewing the details, you can click the Submit button to submit your payment requisition eForm. Payment requisitions can also be used to pay vendors. I've jumped ahead to the first step in the payment requisition eForm. You'll enter your phone number in the Requester field and then select Vendor from the Requisition For drop-down list. Next, you'll select the vendor type. If it's a vendor you've used before, you can select Known. If the vendor is unknown, be prepared to have the vendor's remit to address, telephone number, email address, and a completed W-9 form. In this scenario, we know we've used the vendor before, but we're not sure of the vendor number, so we'll use the search function to look it up. Typically, when you're creating a payment requisition for a vendor, you have a bill or invoice in your hand with a remit to address. It's best practice to conduct your search by the vendor's remit to address, which you can do with this dropdown up here at the top. Down here are the different search criteria you can use. Since we're searching by address, we'll use street. Switch this field to contains and include the P.O. Box number we have for Cardinal Health, which is 13862, and then we'll click Search. Finally, we'll choose the first entry here. As you can see, the fields automatically populate on the previous page. You'll click the Next button to continue. On this page, select the transaction details. Most vendor payment requisitions will be invoices, but you can also choose to do a credit memo. A credit memo is a document that is issued by the vendor to us at Weill Cornell. Credit memos are usually issued for returned goods or in the event an invoice is overpaid. The vendor usually issues the memo for the same or lower amount than the invoice and in turn repays the money to us. For vendors that we continually do business with, we enter the memo in the system so that it gets offset against a balance due from other transactions. In this example, though, we'll stick with invoice. Next, we'll enter the invoice date and then enter the invoice number here. Under itemized expenses, you'll enter the line items of your invoice. Since we know the GL account for office supplies, we'll enter it in that field. Next, you'll enter a description of payment. You'll use the drop-down menu here to select whether you're using a fund or WBS element, and then enter the account number. Lastly, you'll enter in the amount. Hit enter or check, and then click Next to proceed. Here the payment method is pulled in based on preference from the vendor, but you can select an override payment method to pay them by alternative means. In this instance, we'll keep it as a check payment and select the mail check option. Click Next to proceed. On the Attachments page, you'll upload any required documentation to this eForm. You'll click the Required button to upload an invoice. Make your selection, give it a name, and click OK. Add any additional documents as needed, and then click Next. Here you'll review the information you've entered. You can also print or save the PDF file from this page. If everything looks okay, you can click the Submit button to complete this eForm. Once you've submitted your eForm, it will go through an approval process similar to shopping carts in WBG. After submission, the eForm will be routed to the authorized approvers of the fund or WBS element you used. Each fund and WBS element has a group of people that are responsible for managing it. This includes approving charges against it. If you submit an eForm using 2 or more different accounts, it will first be routed to all authorized account approvers. After the account level approval of your eForm, it will be routed to your division administrator for approval, and then finally to your department administrator. Once your eForm is approved by your department administrator, it is sent over to our financial teams for final approval and processing. You will receive an email notification once your eForm has been posted. If you chose to have your check mailed, you'll want to allow up to 2 weeks for the check to arrive, factoring in post office delivery speed. If you opted to pick up your check, it should be available at your chosen location within a week after final approval of your eForm. After submitting your eForm, you can monitor its progress in the eForms Monitor, which we'll cover next. The eForms Monitor is the main hub of all activities surrounding eForms. As we've already seen, it can be accessed by clicking the eForms tab from the WBG homepage. From here, you can create a new eForm, as we discussed earlier. You can also view all eForms you've submitted yourself. If you're designated as an approver of eForms, you will also see other eForms listed here for your department. You can filter by type of eForm by clicking the radio button next to the type you're looking for. You can also filter by status. In this scenario, I'm going to choose travel and expense eForms that are awaiting approval. The preview column opens the PDF that was generated for your eForm. The details column displays a more detailed view of the eForm, similar to your view when you filled it out in the first place. You can see details about the requester and the traveler, as well as a listing of the expenses you logged and any additional details you may have entered. On this display view, you can also see some accounting details, as well as any comments from accounts payable. They may reply to you requesting additional documentation or clarification of an expense. You may want to take particular note of the workflow log here. This is where you can tell the status of your eForm, as well as who is processing it. If there are multiple approvers, you can click this button here to view them. You can also view any documents you attach to the original eForm. The progress bar will show you the progress made on the approval of your eForm. The request ID is the number assigned to your eForm when you created it. The business area is an area under the umbrella of a specific department. For example, under the finance department, some of the business areas are accounts payable, grants and contracts accounting, and payroll. Request type indicates the type of eForm you submitted, for example, a travel and expense versus a payment requisition. And subtype is where you submitted your eForm from. Request status allows you to see the status of your eForm. Saved eForms mean that you haven't yet submitted them. Awaiting approval means it's in the workflow, and lastly, your eForm can either be approved or rejected. You can also see who requested the eForm as well as the date it was requested. Thank you for watching this eForms video demonstration. You can find other eForms help documentation, including job aids, in the eForms section of help files. Until next time.